Awareness is the key, right? Awareness is the first step to changing anything, because if you're not aware of it, you can't change it.
What
So
else do we
building an
need to do?
awareness. So figuring out ways to build awareness. That's the first step.
All right, Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's been a while since I talked to you last. So quick question for you, just for our audience who are not familiar with you. Can you tell us a little bit about the type of people that you coach in your practice?
Absolutely. I coach mostly entrepreneurs, people who are wanting to create more sustainable habits in their life and in their business. And I help them to manage their mind. So I help them focus on their mindset and help them to figure out how to overcome any obstacles that they're encountering and help them to not feel stuck.
I hear you. So you said I helped them with their mind. When I was getting started in this entrepreneurship, I didn't really even know that I had to like manage my mind. Did you know that? I was more worried about managing my cash flow, my lead flow, my workflow. Do you
Absolutely.
mind chat a little bit about why we need to control our mind?
Yeah. I mean, I think everything that we do or don't do in our lives is always because of how we think we're going to feel when we do or we don't do that thing, whatever it is, right? If we want to have more money, we think when we have more money, then we get to feel more successful, more accomplished. When we drive that car, when we have that house, whatever it is that we are trying to do, we always think it's because of how we think we're going to feel when we do that thing. And so knowing that our emotions are what drive us to do or not do everything in our lives, why would we not pay attention to our mindset, our thoughts that drive our emotions? Right. And so I
Wow.
focus a lot on emotions, emotional operating system, what's going on inside of your body. And what is creating that is your brain, right? We've got our intellectual brain that offers up all those thoughts to us, and those thoughts drive our actions or inactions because it creates the emotions, and the emotions drive our actions or inactions.
Wow. That was deep right there. And this is the thing that happens that we don't even know what's happening. Would you agree? It
Absolutely.
happens. We're not, aware of it because we just, oh, I lost that sale. So whatever, or my marketing isn't working. So whatever. And just shut it down. Or does that make sense? We're making decisions. And I know this because we have a soap opera playing in our head all day long.
Absolutely. Well, and you
uh,
know that your subconscious runs the show 95% of the time. I mean, if you think about that as you're running a business, if 95% of your business is being run by your subconscious, wouldn't you want to know what's going on in there?
I do. So how do you know what's going on in there?
So that's the mindset work that we do in coaching, right? That's the
Got it.
work that I do with my clients is I help them to uncover those subconscious and unconscious beliefs and bring them to the surface so that we can check them out, right? We can see what's happening and what are they creating for you so that you can decide, do I want to keep creating this or do I want to maybe do something different?
So let me get this. Chances are more of us are not thinking positively, perhaps, or having those subconscious thoughts that are helping us. They're probably hurting us. So I'm saying more of us. I'm not saying all of us because I don't know, right? I
Yeah,
wish I
I
knew.
mean, and the best way to know is to see what you're creating, right? Like look at the results you're creating in your life. If you're not creating results that you want to create, chances are what's happening is something in your subconscious is blocking you from being able to create the result that you want, right?
Got it.
And our subconscious is created from when we are born until we're about 6 years old. Everything that you have taken in from the first 6 years of your life is all subconscious. You don't even have a conscious brain, right? And so you're just
Wow.
absorbing everything that is surrounding you, right? So your parent figures, whoever is around you, your environment, you're just
Mhm.
absorbing every single thing for the first 6 years or so of your life. And then when you develop your conscious brain, you now have to go in and discern between what you want to accept and what you want to reject as your truth, right? Because you now have all these pre existing beliefs in your subconscious that have to be matched up against everything that's coming in. And so as you grow up and you get older, now you have these subconscious core beliefs that are in your subconscious, right? They're running the show underneath the surface and you're not even aware of it. And then we get into
Agree.
adulthood, right? And then we get into entrepreneurship, especially. And it's a whole different ball game, right? It's a whole different world. And if you're not willing to look at those subconscious beliefs, you're not willing to figure out what thoughts are creating what emotions, then you're basically just turning your life over to your subconscious.
I think you could write a paper on this subject.
I think I could. I'm pretty interested and fascinated by the human brain and by human behavior and how things work. And I'm even learning more tools to add into my coaching practice about going deep into the body and using your imagination and doing some healing work there, but also using it as a way to uncover subconscious blocks that you have that might be keeping you stuck or keeping you from reaching your dreams and your goals.
So let me ask you this. So from a mindset perspective, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you think entrepreneurs make, when they're growing or scaling their business that you know of because you deal with them because they're not creating what they're wanting to create? How's that? And they come to you and then what do you discover? What can they do?
I think some of the biggest mistakes I see, one, the ability to intuitively plan. A lot of people think there's a certain way they're supposed to do things, and they
Yeah.
want somebody to come in and tell them exactly how to do everything, and they don't wanna have to figure out what works best for them. So they just wanna go around and find a person who's gonna tell them exactly how to have a successful business, without realizing that the way to having a successful business is to plan a business that works for you, right? By intuitively planning it. Another way that I see a lot of people, another mistake, so to speak, would be procrastination. When we don't want to do something, maybe we know what to do in our business, right? Maybe we
Right.
have a blueprint, we have a plan, but we don't do it. We just put it off and we put it off, we put it off. I think everybody can think of something on their to-do list that has just been getting carried over from week to week to week to week. They just keep putting it off. They don't want to do it. And one of the biggest mistakes I see is by avoiding those emotions, right? By not being willing to feel whatever that emotion is, we keep putting that off and keep putting that off. All that does is it creates resistance to it, right? And so when you have that resistance to it, of course you're not going to want to feel it,
Right.
and every time that you keep putting something off like that, you're just creating more of a buildup, more of a buildup, more of a buildup. And so
Jeez.
you're now training your body that when you put things off, you get rewarded, right? Because when you procrastinate, you actually feel rewarded in the moment by not having to feel that emotion, right? So do
Yes.
you see that habit that you create when you do that is you're now creating a habit of putting things off, and it feels good in the moment. And then in the long run, it feels like junk. It feels crappy, right? But you've now created a habit of putting things off. And it's really hard to break that habit because you've now created a system in your body, a pattern that your body is used to doing. And so now that neural pathway to procrastination is really strong. And so it's really difficult then to go through and rewire that pathway to not procrastinate. And that's where a coach can be really helpful, right? Because you can go in and recognize what's happening and help you to not have that same neural pathway and not procrastinate.
All right. So I want to be a good student here. Number one is planning. It's the first P. The second P is procrastination that leads to negative patterns. Did I catch that right? Is
Yeah.
there any other piece?
Any other P's? Peace of mind. I think a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves
Yeah,
to do
I
things.
hear it's another P.
Yeah. I didn't even know I was going to do that. I think putting pressure on ourselves instead of using positive emotions to propel us forward. How about that? I'll just keep bringing all the
That's
P's in.
another P.
Positive emotions. I mean, I think we are often taught that shame and judgment drive us to do better and to be better,
Yeah,
but it's
I
actually
agree.
the opposite is true, right? When we create pressure for ourselves, we are trying to use willpower to overcome our brain, right? We're trying to solve for our emotions by taking action. And that never works, right? Because you can't solve for emotions using your thinking brain. And
Wow.
so what works better is finding the positive emotions that you can use to create results, right? So using those positive emotions, not using shame, not using guilt, not using judgment, but using motivation, using feelings of joy, using the worthiness, the worthwhileness of whatever it is that you're doing, not worthiness, worthwhileness of what you're doing.
Right.
Those are
The
different.
impact.
Yeah. Right. So
Right.
finding those ways to use positive emotions to drive you forward versus trying to use willpower to overcome negative emotions.
So let me ask you this. What percentage of the people do you think they're using sort of like that pressure? Like, I'm going to beat myself up. I'll work longer. Hey, look, I'm one of those people. So I'm going to admit hustle harder runs in the blood. Like, how do you, yeah. what percentage of people that you work with you think come from that route rather than motivated by the impact, the difference that we're going to be making, the long-term view, right? Making something that's sustainable, that's going to carry you through rather than short-term, I don't know, whatever it is that they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I think we live in a society where we're conditioned to believe that like the pleasure needs to be instant, right? And so we are
Mhm.
constantly looking for that. So I would say the majority of the people that I coach, if not all of the people, are motivated by pressure, are motivated by, wanting to do the best and wanting to like seek instant pleasure, right? And so
Jeez.
that's often where the pressure comes from is like we want to have that good feeling. And so
Yeah.
we're constantly looking for ways to feel good now.
Yeah. So once they go through this, let's just say that they understand, they're making these, there's thoughts happening subconsciously, your life is running on autopilot, which is one of my favorite words because we're all autopilot, right? Wake up, brush your teeth is autopilot, putting clothes on autopilot, showers autopilot, driving, right? Just keep taking left turn the same place. You don't think. So life is on autopilot for the most part. So how do you then bring light into the fact that, hey, what you're creating isn't what you want to create? Here's why that's happening. Here's what you need to do to get the result that you're really looking for so that you don't have to be okay with an average life, average
Yeah.
results,
I mean, I think awareness is the key, right? Awareness is the first step to changing anything because if you're not aware of it, you can't change it.
right? What
So
else do we
building an
need to do?
awareness. Well, so I mean, figuring out ways to build awareness. I mean, that's the first step, right? So let's just stop there for a minute and think about how do you build awareness, right? The ways that you can build awareness are through meditation, through journaling,
Mhm.
through talking with trusted friends, talking with a therapist, talking with a coach. That's why I think a
Mhm.
lot of people hire coaches is to have an outside perspective who doesn't buy into those stories that you have in your subconscious, right? They
Yep.
can catch them because they're not bought into them like you are.
Not emotionally attached.
Absolutely. Like when I do journaling for myself, I resisted journaling for a long time because I thought, you know what? Journaling's for the birds. It's so hard. It takes up so much time. And what I
Mhm.
realized is that those were all just stories that I had. And now when I do journaling, it's messy. Like I don't worry about how clean I write or what I'm writing or if
Wow.
it's right like if I'm writing the same thing every day or I don't worry about it. All I do is I just write down thoughts and then I can sometimes self-coach myself through it, right? Like I'll ask myself a question and then I'll answer it. Maybe I'll use two different colored pens where I've got
Mhm.
two different dialogues going on, right? So I can talk to myself and coach myself through something because oftentimes we would tell somebody else something completely different than we tell ourselves, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
the way we talk to ourselves is often different than how we talk to other people. And so you can have a dialogue with yourself to create awareness. You can talk to people that you don't really know, right? Maybe you're
Yeah.
just talking to other people to get perspective of how they think about things. And you're noticing that your awareness is, oh, they think about something completely different than I do.
Agreed.
So
Okay.
that's
Awareness.
the first step.
What's the second step? If you don't mind.
Yeah,
Keep
the
done.
second step is getting curious about that awareness, right? So, we use coaching tools to help you get curious about that and to see what you're creating with that awareness. So, if
Mhm.
you're noticing, that you're feeling afraid because you're thinking that you're never going to figure it out. And whenever you think that you're never going to figure it out and you feel afraid, you
Yeah.
play small, you hide, you don't show up, you don't post on social media, you don't talk to people about what you're doing, you don't promote your business, you don't take action in your
Mhm.
business, you're not reaching out to potential clients, right? And so when you're thinking that I'm never going to figure it out and you feel afraid and you show up that way, then you perpetuate that feeling of never figuring it out and that belief that you're never going to figure it out because when you're playing small and you're not telling people what you're doing and you're not promoting your business, you're not
Yep.
figuring it out, right?
Wow.
And so that's the result that you create. So when you have awareness of what you're creating by using curiosity, not judgment, right?
Yep.
Coming at it from a place of curiosity, like, I wonder what's going on, not like, oh, you're so stupid. I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you're doing that, right? Why would you think that that's okay? You're never going to figure this out. Not judging it, but getting curious about, well, I wonder what I'm creating when I think that. I wonder why I'm thinking that. Where might that have come from? Right.
Right.
And then once you have that awareness, then you can decide what you want to do with it. That's the third step. So you have awareness is the first step. Curiosity is the second step. And then you make a
Mhm.
decision about what do I want to believe? What do I want to do? What do I want to, what results do I want to create? And then you can start to get to work on building up those beliefs.
You know, I'm gonna, this thing that you taught me in the past always comes into my mind. So I'm going to just ask you about it. So, two things I want to ask you. Number one is for those people that they kind of like go back into that fear mode. There probably are people that did work with a coach and they try to get them out of their comfort zone and they didn't feel comfortable. So they fired the coach and they go right back to that fear mode. Do you think that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense that it happens, right? Because remember that we've got our primitive brain, which is
Yes.
survival based, right? It's wired for survival. So it makes
Got it.
sense that we don't want to go out of our comfort zone. And
Hmm.
honestly, I believe that people do things when they're ready. And sometimes we're not ready to let go of those beliefs, right? Sometimes we're not ready
Sure.
to let go and we want to just keep hanging on to those beliefs because they keep us safe. They
Hmm.
serve a purpose. And
Yeah.
so I never push anyone to do something that they're not ready to do. And so if somebody were to, get to a place where they're like, yeah, I just want to go back to, where they were, like they've got to be the one that takes the action and figures it out, right? And says, I'm ready to do this
Yeah.
because you can't really force someone to do that because it may be a safety thing for them.
I agree. That was my advice. I was going to ask you, what do you think for those people? What should they do if they're watching or listening to this and they're afraid to get out of their comfort zone? I think you kind of covered that.
Yeah.
Be
I mean,
ready or go
I
ahead.
could touch a little bit more on that in terms of, if you're finding that you're really afraid of stepping outside of your comfort zone, I would really
Right.
encourage you to resource your inner safety. Resource the things that you have available to you in your own body. Create
Mhm.
safety in yourself, right? And if you're not sure how to do that, I'm happy to, to work with you and
Sure.
help you with that. But if you can figure out how to create safety in yourself, nobody can take that away from you. Right?
Right.
If you can
Right.
figure out how to feel whole and to not need other people's opinions or other people's thoughts about you, like that don't impact you, and you're able to create that safety for yourself, you're going to be much more likely to put yourself out there and to step outside of your comfort zone and be willing to grow and evolve.
Absolutely. I don't remember exactly the way you said it. I remember, but then I forgot right now. That was when somebody is in feeling successful or feeling down or whatever, you said they have to find signs or proof or whatever that they're successful. Do you remember that thing that you would teach me? That echoes in my brain a lot more than you think. I've definitely playing in my subconscious brain, in case you didn't
I
know.
believe it. I actually hear that a
Tell me
lot.
that.
I
Tell me that. Tell me that statement. I forgot, but I'm going to record this and like play back.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, so,
yes.
one of the things that I work on a lot in my practice is finding things that are already working, right?
Yeah.
And building upon it. And so part of that is what we do in our coaching is we talk about finding the things that are already successful, right? Because here's the thing. If you're focusing on being unsuccessful, your brain is going to look for all the ways that it's true that you're not successful, right? So it's going to
Mm,
scan every environment, scan every situation, and look for evidence to prove that you're not successful. And it's going to
right.
find you
Evidence. That was the
several
word. Evidence.
evidence. And so
Yes.
if you're trying to build in a new belief, one of the things that's really important about building in a new belief is being able to find evidence already that it's true, right?
Hmm.
And it could be the smallest bit of evidence, but just getting your brain on board to searching for evidence that it's true is going to be the first step in perpetuating this new belief, right? And then part of the problem is we do that for this short amount of time, right? Like look for ways that you're successful and we do it for maybe a couple weeks. And then we're like, oh, this isn't working. So they stop, right? And before a new neural pathway has the ability to form on this
Hmm.
belief to successful feelings, we stop, right?
Yeah.
And then our default kicks back in and we go right back to thinking that we're unsuccessful and finding all the evidence for that. So the trick is you've got to be willing to search for evidence for a long enough period of time so that the new neural pathway to the belief of feeling successful, whatever it is, like I am successful, you've got to be willing to believe that and find evidence for it long enough that that new neural pathway becomes stronger than the old neural pathway, right? Because the old neural pathway is never going to go away. It's always going to be there. But when you strengthen the new neural pathway and you teach your brain that this is the direction I want to be going, and you do that for a long enough period of time, then more often than not, your brain is going to look for evidence of how you're successful versus unsuccessful. Does that make sense?
Wow. Oh, it makes perfect sense. And I appreciate you doing that with me in the past. It's still like fresh in my mind. So if you thought that I was not paying attention to our sessions, trust me, I was.
I
I'm
hear that a
sure.
lot though. I hear a lot of people are like, you know what? I have Stephanie in my head. Like, what would Stephanie do? I hear that a lot from my clients.
Oh, so Stephanie, how can our audience find you?
How can they find me? Well, they can look for me on social media.
Okay.
I do have a Facebook business page that's
Hmm.
Stephanie Nichols Coaching. So that's probably where I hang out on social media the most. But if you're interested in just connecting with me and learning more or asking me questions, you can shoot me an email. And that's just Stephanie at stephanie-nichols.com. I'd be more than happy to talk with you more about anything we talked about today. Or even if you've got questions about something around mindset or the brain and how the brain works, if I can answer it, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you so much for showing up today. All right. And
Oh, well,
serving our community.
I'm happy to do so.
All right.